Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to hear my birth story. I've been meaning to record this for, well, Amelia is 14 weeks now, so probably about 14 weeks. I actually kept notes as well all throughout my pregnancy because I knew I really wanted to share my birth story, regardless of how the birth went. So I listened to loads of birth stories when I was pregnant and I found it really useful. At first I was scared to listen to birth stories, but listening to positive ones really helped me learn all about birth. I think when you're growing up, you really picture birth from like movies being really scary, being really painful, blood everywhere, and it does put the fear into you. But over the years, working obviously in Own It Baby, and then my previous business, the Strong Mum Club, I was surrounded by women who were going through birth. I would hear all kinds of birth stories, and even during your training as well, learning about pre and postpartum exercise, you'll learn about what happens to the body, obviously. So then when you're prescribing exercise, you understand what the body's been through. So over the years, I started to learn that there's all different kinds of birth and that actually they don't have to be scary and they're probably going to be painful one way or another. But yeah, that they can actually be really calm and really beautiful and empowering. So let's go all the way back to when I found out I was pregnant. I was obviously absolutely over the moon and I couldn't wait for the birth. Rather than being scared, it was something that really excited me. And I thought, this is going to be amazing because it is really magical. And I think that's what really made me excited about birth was the fact that, because when you are younger, you think, how on earth is a baby ever going to fit out of the vagina? But learning about birth, you realise that it all happens pretty magically. So, when baby's ready to come, the signals get sent from the brain down to the uterus, down to your cervix to actually make way for the baby to fit through the birth canal. So that to me is just absolutely magical. So right from the very beginning, I was really excited about hopefully having a vaginal birth. I knew from the start that I was always going to do hypnobirthing as well. So hypnobirthing, if you don't know what that is, it's not some kind of like hypnosis. Right, I'm not going to feel any pain, I've done my homework, so it's all going to go to plan. It's not like that at all. For me, it was more an education course I found. I found that the more I learned about birth, hypnobirthing basically prepares you for whatever can happen. So there's so many different things that can happen during your birth. And the more prepared you are, the more you're able to say, right, okay, I've heard about this term, whatever the terminology might be, it comes up in birth. If you've heard about it, you then know about the benefits, the risks, what happens if you do that thing, or is there an alternative? Can you do nothing and just wait? So for me, hypnobirthing was an education course, alongside obviously learning to breathe and be calm, which I've always loved anyway. I've always done yoga and breath work and things like that. So it really interested me to do hypnobirthing. I originally thought, right, I'll go to Jilly from Mama Wellbeing with her being local. And I know Jilly, and she was on maternity leave, but she gave me a list of hypnobirthing coaches and instructors to go check out. So I started listening to every podcast under the sun, from Claire from the Nurture Nest, Erin Fung, Midwife Pip, who else? Oh my God, there was loads. Anyway, I listened to every podcast you could on hypnobirthing. I then found Lindsay from Born This Way, and she's based in Glasgow, and I thought, right, perfect, someone semi-local, and I'd done her online hypnobirthing course, which I found amazing. Because I knew I was quite motivated about learning about birth, I found that I could do that in my own time, listen to the positive mindset tracks every single night. I was just really getting myself prepared. So I really was looking forward to this birth because I thought, I just was picturing it, like I couldn't wait for your waters to break or your mucus plug coming away, like things that I had never really heard much about before. All of a sudden, I was starting to look for these in my own journey. I thought, right, when the contractions start, I had a document on my laptop of what to do when the contractions start. I had a list for Liam. Right, Liam, when I phone you and say the contractions are starting, here's what you've got to do. You've got to feed me, make sure I'm drinking water, give me a massage, keep me calm. Like, he had a full list, I had a list, and I was just so excited for that birth. So the bulk of this story is actually me navigating being breech. So Amelia was breech full term. Now this is quite uncommon, so only 3 to 4% of babies are breech all the way at full term. Majority maybe flip to head down, which is cephalic, is when the head's down into the cervix, the pelvis, one of the two, ready to come down. And that's a more preferred way for a vaginal birth. If a baby's breech, that's when bums first or feet first, and it's not the most preferred way to deliver your baby for a vaginal birth. So let's go all the way to, try to think of my timeline here. It was the day before my birthday, actually. Let's say the 9th of December. And I go to my midwife, my local midwife up in Pullman, and Gillian, she's absolutely amazing. If anyone knows her, you'll know who I mean. She was like, Michelle, I think your baby's breech. She says, we'll send you for a scan at the hospital to double check. So we go for a scan. And because I had been listening to lots of different birth stories, I listened to them all, and they were all really beautiful in their own way. And like I say, it was nice to hear about C-sections, vaginal birth, water births. You get free births, so that's when people don't have any appointments at all. They just go by feeling. And I was starting to really not understand it all, but get to grips with everything. And I had thought to myself, I really didn't want to have a C-section, and there was so many different reasons why, and I would actually get quite emotional when I thought about it, and I would try and explain to Liam like how I really felt about it, and I couldn't. I would just get emotional. I think it was a whole lot of reasons, for example, my work. Obviously, I've trained like all my life. I absolutely love training, and I know from working with women in the pre and postpartum that actually your recovery after a section is much longer. Obviously, you're getting cut open to deliver the baby. I was really scared of the surgery. I've never really been through a big surgery before. I was terrified of it, and I was really wanted to experience the labour, because I've heard loads of times it's like running a marathon, it's an endurance event. And when it comes to fitness, one thing I'm probably quite good at is endurance. Like, I thought, I've got energy for days. Like, me and Nicole ran 70 kilometres when I was 5 weeks pregnant, and I was like, if I can go through that, I thought I can go through this labour. If it's the endurance side of things, like, I could do that. So I was really passionate about wanting a vaginal birth. I wanted to experience the hormones coming from the brain. I wanted the contractions. Like, I had done all my breathing work. I just wanted it so much. I get a wee bit emotional when I think about it, and I just, now this is why I'm sharing my story as well, because I really didn't want the C-section. I was really passionate about not wanting one, and now I've had one. It was absolutely fine, which I will share more about. But I want to share it because if anyone's feeling like how I felt, I so really didn't want one, and to the point I thought, oh my God, like, this is. And then I used to tell myself, Michelle, it doesn't matter. Like, you're so lucky to be having your baby. The birth does not matter. Your baby's going to get here safely. And even though I would tell myself that every single day, I still got so emotional. So I guess I'm sharing this because I hope if anyone's in my position and they're breech full term and they really don't want a C-section, well, for one, I'm going to tell you that there is options, which we come on to, but also it's not as bad as I thought, and you will still have so much connection with your baby. I was worried I wouldn't feel the connection to my baby because she hadn't came down the birth canal, which is crazy, I know, but I was just so scared of so many reasons, and it was my very, very last option. But it does not matter now, and that's why I'm sharing. So I'm kind of rambling. I probably will ramble. I've told myself I can't start and stop this video. I'm just going to need to go with it. Amelia's away for a walk with my mum and dad, and I've got about 30 minutes, and I'm just going to, it's just my story, so I'm just telling it as it is. So, right, we find out we are still breech, and I'm about 37 weeks at this point. I'm trying absolutely everything to get Amelia head down, doing up, Spinning Baby's website. They'll tell you to look on that if you're breech, you're hanging upside down, basically trying to get gravity to move baby into this head down position, doing lots of different like hot and cold techniques in the bath. So putting like a cold pack of peas up at the top so that if the baby doesn't like it, she'll try and move down, trying everything. I actually went for my scan, and the midwife at the time done the scan. She says, yep, baby's definitely breech. She says, we'll just do a wee internal to find where your placenta's lying, because if your placenta moves out the way, and then baby moves, you can have your vaginal birth that you want. Anyway, so we're doing the internal, and the midwife saying at the time, I'm just trying to move baby's head, and obviously she's pushing down here, moving baby's head out the way, and I was thinking, head down? And I think I was so happy that she was head down, I didn't ask any questions, I just lay there silent thinking, yes, baby's moved, but that was in the space of 2 seconds. So at the start of that appointment, she was bum down. Then by the time I'm getting the internal, it was as if she was head down. So I think I knew deep down the baby had moved, and I would have felt something. Never felt a thing. Anyway, I go through to the consultant, and the consultant just took the notes from the scan, and he says, yeah, baby's head down, you can have your vaginal birth. So, and then I said, are you sure? Because she was breech at the start of the appointment, but obviously they just took the notes from the scan, but I knew she wasn't head down. So she had always been breech. But anyway, I'm in the car on the way home. I was whooping out loud, like, yes, baby, we've done it. Your head down. We're going for this vaginal birth. Then I was terrified at the fact of, oh my God, I'm getting what I want here. Anyway, we go back to Jillian about 2 weeks later. She says, Michelle, your notes say that baby's cephalic, head down. She's not. She's definitely breech. She's like, I can feel her through your tummy. And I thought, oh, here we go again. Because during listening to all my birth stories, I'd started to realise that if your baby's breech, usually a section is your only option. It's considered unsafe. So we'll go into that part just now, because this is where, so I spent the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy absolutely on a minefield of understanding breech. So like I say, only 3 to 4% of babies are breech full term. So it's so uncommon. So that's why no one really has had to do the research around it. If they're not breech, they wouldn't have to know about it. Or a lot of the time, if they tell you, right, it's unsafe, you're getting a section, of course, so many women will say, yeah, right, okay, I'm getting a section. I actually went in for an ECV, so that's when they tried to turn the baby from the outside. I know friends that have had that done as well, and it's not meant to be a very nice experience. But I phoned my friend, who's a fellow coach as well, and she was like, Michelle, it's not nice. She was like, but you're like me, if you want to have this vaginal birth, you'll go through it to try. So I said, right, okay, let's do this. Liam came in with me, and 2 women doctors came in, and they both said at the time, I hear your baby's the wrong way round. And from what I had been listening and starting to learn about breech, I was like, there's nothing wrong with the way she is. She's not the wrong way around. She's just bummed down. So already I was starting to be like, people don't like delivering breech babies. And then they tried to turn, and then midwife Kelly, who was an absolute angel, she came in. She was actually holding my hand. And we know each other through mutual friends. So I think she's got me on social media. So she's seen all the mad runs that I had been doing, like the marathons as training runs, then a marathon, then a 70 kilometres. So the doctors are saying at the time, are you okay? And the midwife saying, you've done harder stuff than this. And that was making me really emotional. So there's tears streaming down my face. But I was breathing. I was just using my hypnobirthing breath to get through this turn. And it was sore. But again, I was like, this is fine. I felt more sorry for my baby. I think that was making me emotional as well. And then Liam actually left during the second turn because I think he said he needed the toilet, but I actually think it was quite horrible to watch. But I would say, if I was breech again, would I get a ECV? I don't know, because I feel quite bad. I felt bad on baby. I feel like she was just meant to be breech. There's nothing wrong with her being breech. So I don't know if I would try the ECV if I was to be breech again. To be fair, no regrets about trying it, because I think if I hadn't tried it, I would always be thinking like, oh, what if she had turned? So yeah, if you're in this situation, I wouldn't say the ECV was that sore. I would just say if you want to go for it, go for it. They did actually tell us, obviously, there's a small chance that during your ECV that baby would get too distressed and that you would need to go for a C-section there and then. And in a way, I was like, I kind of hope this happens. That was in December, and I was like, I'm so ready for the baby to come here now. So yeah, I wasn't, by this point, I guess I was like, right, I'm not totally against a C-section. I wasn't. I just wanted to experience the labour. I cannot even describe how much I just wanted the contractions. I wanted the full experience. So sorry, I'm totally rambling, but I'm just telling everybody as it is. So the doctor said they were lovely. Both doctors said, sorry, she's not turning, C-section 12th of January. And I was like, all right, okay, of course, like the doctors, I'm going to listen to what the doctors say. And then they just left, and that was fine. By the time Liam came back in, I was crying, and I think it was just, I was like, right, well, that's it. I'm getting a C-section, 12th of January, everything was set in stone. I'm then starting to think about, what about all my preparation? Like, I had bought I know it's silly, but I'd bought absolutely everything. The comb for your hand that you're pushing into your hand to take away the pain from the contractions. I had bought a perineum tool to help reduce the risk of tearing. I had got my raspberry leaf tea, my dates. What else did I buy? My TENS machine. I was as prepared as you could be. And that's the good thing I liked about hypnobirthing was it wasn't a case of, right, you've done your homework, your plan's going to go to plan. I always knew that so many different factors can come into it. But to actually then be told you're getting a C-section and that's it, that was the hard part, I think. So then midwife comes back in. She was like a wee guardian angel. I feel like she was just put there, like, specially. If she hadn't been there, this whole journey would be totally different. She seen me upset and she says, are you okay? And I was like, I just really wanted a vaginal birth. And she had 4 kids, 4 vaginal births. And she was like, she says, you do know there's other options. Like, you don't have to settle for a C-section. She was like, I do feel like you were just told that's C-section and that's it. You didn't really get an explanation. She says, go home and research vaginal breech birth. She said, it can happen. It's absolutely fine. It's just uncommon. And I was like, is it not unsafe? I've heard it can be a bit unsafe. She was like, no. She was like, that's just because that's the first thing that comes up. There was a big study, which I'm going to talk about, but so me and Liam leave that day and I was like, oh my God, I thought this is actually too much to handle. Like, I had accepted the C-section and I was fine with that. Now I've been given this option of, you can have a vaginal birth. You just go and learn about it. So anyway, that was me down a rabbit hole for 6 weeks. I found Dr. Stu Fishbein, I think his name is, American guy. His full life pretty much is reteaching breech. So many, I can't remember when this breech study was. It was obviously a good 14 weeks ago now. I was obsessed with it, and now I've kind of forgotten a lot about it. But basically, there was a big breech trial. So let's say 50 years ago, it might have been less than that, it might have been longer. They done a study on breech birth. Now, they've just said, say for example, 100 people, 50 people, you're going for a C-section, other 50 people, you're going for a vaginal breech birth. But why would you ever take part in a study, when you're pregnant? It's just absolutely bizarre. But then, basically after this study, the results came up that breech birth is unsafe. But there was so many factors that made this study absolutely flawed. Like, the women that got sent for the vaginal birth maybe were high risk and should have had a C-section birth anyway. They were absolutely panicked because they've been told, well, this might be unsafe, but you're going to be taking part in a trial. The doctors that were delivering, they had maybe never done breech before. There was just so many factors that made this study pretty much absolute shit. And that's not me just making this up. This was honestly weeks and weeks of studying and figuring it all out. So there is so many positive breech births. It's another variation of normal. So midwives will tell you that, because midwives want women to experience the birth, obviously, that they want. And if that's a vaginal birth, they want you to experience that. The risk is like, say, for example, 1 in 1,000, the risk that something can happen to baby through a vaginal birth. When the head's down, when it's bum down, breech, you're 2 in 1,000. So people will say that the risk is doubled. It's not. It's 1 in 1,000 or 2 in 1,000. Very, very minor. Every birth causes a risk. There's a huge risk with C-section as well, which I think I was trying to get through to myself and everybody. There's a huge risk with a C-section. I had to actually stop telling people that I wanted a vaginal breech birth, because their reaction is, oh, you can't do that. And that's only because this study, say you were to put it in Google, it would come up, it's unsafe. And as I say, not many people are breech full term, so they don't have to do the full research. So this took us up to basically 6 weeks before. So I had pushed the C-section back from the 12th of January to the, what was my next date? I basically pushed it back 3 times. The final eviction date was the 26th of January. So let's fast forward a little bit, because I'm kind of rambling. Basically, I started to chat to people. I joined the Breech UK group on Facebook. There's 5,000 plus women in there. and so many people were talking about their stories. Now, I was really lucky at Forth Valley, so I had said to Liam and myself, I said, like, if any doctor tells me that this is unsafe, I will 100% go with them. Like, I'm not going to go against the doctors at all. It's the doctor's word. That's what I'm going for. But yeah, so the midwife that was there at my ECV appointment had said, look, let's get you an appointment with a consultant. Let's talk about this and do your research. She says, because if you do your research and find out, oh, like, no, I don't want to have the vaginal birth, I want to have a C-section. She says, then at least you feel empowered, like you're making that decision. You'll much prefer it. And I was like, I really like that. That sounds good. But the more I learned about it, I was like, this is fine. I felt like it was meant to be for me because, so when you're breech, they can't induce you. They can't give you the false hormone oxytocin. A lot of the time when people get started early and the baby's just not ready to come out, that's when you end up in a C-section as well, because you basically got started early but the body wasn't ready. So, but with being breech, they cannot induce you anyway. Can't give you the hormone, can't give you a sweep, can't, what's the other one, give you the balloon or anything like that. Because if they start the body before the cervix is fully opened, that's when complications can happen to the baby. And I just loved the fact that my body was just to wait and do its thing. I thought there's no chance I've grown a baby that's too big. Like, how's the baby going to get out? If we were back in the cave women days, how would the baby get out? So I was very much, my body can do this, my baby can do this. I felt like we were meant to deliver a vaginal breech birth. So I met Dr. Eileen Coop at the consultant, and she was absolutely amazing. She was just my kind of person. She was really laid back, but I could tell she was really intelligent. She was just brilliant. And she says, right, okay, she was like, you've got a couple of options. She says, we can push the C-section date back, see if baby turns. We could try another ECV if you want, or you can do a vaginal breech birth. She says, it would be my least preferred. She was like, but we'll totally support you. And she was just really positive. I could tell that she was like, no, if you want to go for it, go for it. So that was my first appointment. I was in like every week just trying to figure this all out. She phoned upstairs to the ward, and she was like, let me see if Jackie's working. Jackie's a midwife who is very pro vaginal breech birth. We went up to chat to her, and she was super busy, but she was like, she came out to talk to us, and I just basically said to her in a nutshell, I says, would you say yes or no to this? She was like, oh yes. She was like, it's a dying skill. Like, midwives are not delivering breech anymore because people are just getting told you must get a C-section. They're getting told it's unsafe. She was like, it's not. You just need whoever's delivering it needs to know what they're doing. Basically, you get like, it's about 7 minutes for when that baby's bum starts coming out. You get 7 minutes. You don't even touch baby. Mum needs to just be calm, just breathe, and let the baby come out. Like, it's just another variation of normal. And I was like, I'm so ready for this. Like, we are doing this. So Jackie put a lot of positive, words and things into me. I still feel like if she was working that day, I feel like we would have went ahead with the vaginal birth. Then I went in the next week to speak to another midwife, Vanessa. She met me. She took me into one of the rooms. She was like, this would be where you would be, the labour suite. It was nice and calm, dark lights, fairy lights, talking about the different positions that are good for breech. Again, she was very much like, yeah, if you want to do this, we'll support you. So everyone I spoke to along the way was very supportive. Where this Facebook group that I was part of, people all over the UK, they were basically saying like that their healthcare providers will not support them, but they were basically doing it anyway. So you've got so many options. Like, when it's your birth, you can say no to whatever you want. As I had said, I kept telling Liam, like, I'm not going against the doctors. Like, I will do whatever they say. But they were supporting me, so I kept saying, right, we're just going to keep pushing back this C-section date. When my last kind of meeting with Dr. Eileen Cope, I hope I'm saying her name right, she said, right, let's put a last date for your C-section in the diary. My due date was the 15th of January. She says you can have the 23rd or the 26th. And I was like, oh, we're never going to make it that far. Let's go for the 23rd. So obviously the 15th of January passes. I actually felt like I started to go backwards. So in December, when I went for that ECV, I was so ready to meet my baby then. I felt so pregnant. I felt really heavy. I'd kind of stopped going to the gym almost at about, I think it was like 36, 37 weeks. Caught an awful cold in December, so that kind of floored me. Anyway, by January, by my due date, I was back in the gym. I was like, I I felt like I was going backwards. But I also thought to myself, I need to go to the gym because I want to feel strong at this time. Like this, if it was starting to feel quite vulnerable, like it was a huge decision. My mum wasn't sleeping. Liam's mum wasn't sleeping. Liam was having nightmares because everyone was a wee bit scared about me wanting to go for this vaginal birth. And I kept telling everyone, I was like, it's fine. I was like, just nobody knows about it because they've never had to learn about it. If you've learned what I've had to learn about vaginal breech birth, I was like, you would be totally all for it as well. So I was trying to tell everyone as we were going. Liam was really, really supportive. He knew how much I wanted the birth that I wanted, because I thought as well, like my mum said to me, she's like, keep remembering, like it's you and Liam, what do you both want? I think she was worried that he would be worried, and he was like, no, I'm fine. Like you sound positive. You not saying you know what you're doing, because again, I didn't, but I was, yeah, I felt like quite empowered that with the choices I was choosing. So where are we? I've absolutely not stopped talking. Then I went back in one day and we had another meeting with the consultant, and I was in the waiting room and I was so tired, and I said to Liam, I says, I cannot like make this choice. I need them to tell me what I need to do. I think by that point as well I was ready for them to say go for a C-section, it's safer. I says I'm exhausted. I felt a bit like beat, like I thought I don't know enough about this to go for what I want. And Liam started to say, he was like, think about what you've done, like think about the heavy long way home, that massive challenge, and like think about when you wanted to give up. What did you do? And I was like, stop. I said, don't remind me. Like I think I didn't want to feel strong because I was scared that if I felt strong enough to go after what I wanted, like what if something happened to baby? It was too big a decision. Anyway, we go in to meet the consultant again. And again, they were just so supportive. Like, yeah, that's fine. Let's push the C-section date back. So this must have been on the 20th. So I went in for my pre-op. That was it. Date for the section was the 23rd of January. We went in on the 22nd. It was a Thursday night, and that's when I was like, I am totally beat. Like, I just need them to tell me what to do. But it didn't feel right. I was like, I says, what if? I'm laughing at myself. I was like, what if I take this section on the Friday? And then baby was just meant to come on the Saturday. Like, I need to give it to the 26th because originally I had those 2 dates to choose from. So I was like, what's the difference in just a couple of days? And I said to them, can I possibly have that slot on the Monday? I think they were all like, oh my God, just get this baby out. And 2 doctors, they said, yeah, absolutely. Like, and one doctor, I wish I could remember his name. I can't remember his name. But he said, you've gone this far, give it your best shot. And I thought, right. So we pushed the section date back to the Monday, the 26th of January. We were calling it the last eviction date. And I was like, right, if she doesn't come by the 26th, we'll go for the section. I will be happy to take the section by that date. So now we actually get to the birth story. The Sunday morning, the 25th of January, Rabbie Burns Day, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm rolling about in my ball. I was eating my dates. I was watching Emily in Paris. That just totally reminds me of those last few weeks and first weeks of Amelia being born. And I got this big like hot flush. I had to run to the toilet. I felt like I needed a number 2, and I was like, oh my God, I need to go now. And this flush just came from nowhere. And I was like stripping off in the toilet. And I was like, once I stopped in the toilet, I was like, I need to lie on the floor because I needed to be cool. And then I started to think, wait a minute, because that's also a sign that labour is starting if you need to go for a number 2. It's basically your body like flushing out to make room for everything that's about to happen. And then my waters broke on the toilet. And honestly, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, baby's coming. Baby is coming. It was just a treacle. And I remember my best friend Melissa telling me that that's what hers was like. It was just this trickle of water. You know you're not peeing, but you're like, it's as if I'm peeing, but I can't stop it. And then Liam was still sleeping, and this was all I wanted. I think I just wanted that moment where labour was starting and we were, we were going to have our baby. And then I go through and I wake Liam up. And I was like, my waters are broke. And then I was standing in the hall, and the next minute more waters come out, but there's blood in the water. excuse me, there's also meconium. So meconium, if you don't know what that is, that's when baby's done a poo inside you. It's their first poo that comes out. If baby was head down, that would be quite dangerous because baby was breech, her wee bum's ready to come out. It's basically getting squished like a wee tub of toothpaste. So the poo had came out, but that was obviously inside me. So it could be quite well, no, if she was head down, it's unsafe. If she's breech, it's not unsafe. So I phoned triage because they had this big note on my file like, Michelle's wanting this breech birth, like here's what to do to basically make sure that everything's fine. So they were like, right, come in because we want to monitor you with you being breech. So we went in and again everything was fine, but every time my waters went, again it was pretty disgusting because there's poo inside me. But we got put in a little room and then because obviously when your waters break, if you're head down, you can get like 24 hours before they would start inducing you to bring on baby if baby's not ready to come on their own. But because I was breech, they couldn't do that. But they said, we'll still give you 24 hours, the same as we would if you were head down. So again, they were very supportive. Like, I cannot fault Force Valley at all. They were so good with me. And then Dr. Riley, she was dealing with us, and we had been told lots about Dr. Riley, like she's worked over in Africa and things like that, delivered breech babies. So when she was working, I was like, yes, like this is going to happen. I'm going to get my birth. And then she came in roughly about, so 14 hours had passed. Oh yeah, so contractions started as well. So I was like, I had everything set up, the app set up, ready to time them, but they were very mild. I would time them, I would breathe through them with my hypnobirthing for about a minute. Then they were 7 minutes apart, and I was like, that's not bad. I was like, once they get to, I knew that once they were to get to, the 4 minutes apart, lasting for a minute roughly, for an hour, that's when I would have went into the hospital if I was still at home. But because we had to go in early, but they did start to slow down. But I thought, it just kept being calm because I was like, surely they wouldn't stop completely, but they actually kind of did. Anyway, Dr. Riley came in about 14 hours after, and she was like, look, Michelle, she was like, I don't think you're going to get to where you need to be able to deliver this baby. We don't even know if if it was your third baby, right, okay, we'll let you go for the vaginal breech birth. But it's your first baby, we just don't know what's happening. She's like, you've got a big baby. She was like, she's going to be roughly about £8.12. Like, that's a lot for delivering breech. They were kind of at this point starting to get a bit scared. I would have still kept going, I think, but at the end of the day, if they says, I think you should have a section, I looked at Liam and we said, let's get this baby out. And then everything just went really fast. So when people ask me, was it an elective section, was it an emergency, I'm like, it was kind of a bit of both, because in a way, we had, I was like, right, okay, I'm electing to have this section. But then it just went like that, and they were like, right, baby's distressed, we need to get out. And now I kind of laugh about it. I'm like, I don't think baby was distressed. I think everybody else was distressed that I was going to hang on any longer. We were already, 10 days overdue. Although those dates they're not accurate at all. I was going to have let myself go 2 weeks overdue, I think, if baby had been head down. But yeah, next minute but then I was really upset. I was definitely upset. They're trying to talk to me about putting the anesthesia in, can't even say that. Somebody's taking my clothes off. It was just went kind of madness. And then they're wheeling me through. I'm howling and crying because I'm like, right, I'm getting a section. I remember sitting looking up at the bright white lights, being like, I'm not going to be able to drive for 6 weeks. How am I going to train? Like, I'm not going to feel my baby coming out. But it was absolutely fine. And we had been prepared for a section because they tell you, get prepared for it, make it lovely, play your favourite music. So we had a playlist ready. Amelia was born to Calm Down by Rima, a lovely song that I absolutely love. And I remember, but it was really scary at the start. Like, you go from this dark room to all of a sudden this bright white theatre. They were talking about like passing the catheter, and that's what I remember being really scared of the catheter because I had one before when I had an operation in Ibiza. And that was the sorest part. This time it was absolutely fine. But yeah, it was just like, I felt like something out of Stranger Things, sitting on this bright white operating theatre table, naked. Liam he never gets upset. He was upset because I was upset, and I think he was worried about me, like, because of how much I didn't want this. And then, yeah, next minute, baby was here. Once we put the music on, I was like, get the music on, get my sheet up, because it was just all happening really fast. obviously you don't feel anything, but you could feel the kind of, I felt like my stomach was like open. The one positive I'll take from it, they said it was difficult because of my abs. I was like, I'll take that. But then next minute, beautiful Amelia was here, and I kept saying to Liam, what? He was still upset, but we were squeezing each other's hand, and I was like, she's coming. Like nothing else matters. Like that full last 6 weeks when I was really stressed, really upset, really like, I'm like, none of that matters anymore. Beautiful Amelia is coming, her baby is here, we're finally ready to meet her. And I think that's why I really wanted to share this, is if you feel really passionate about what you want your birth to be. I don't even want to, everybody's really different, so I don't want to say it'll be fine, because I know if you're feeling really upset, I know how you're feeling. It's not what I wanted, but it's absolutely fine. And she was here. The recovery's been absolutely fine. The first week was harder than I thought, but then the rest of it is much easier than I thought. I do think my strength and fitness has been able to help that. But that's pretty much it. If I would be really lucky enough to have another baby, which I really, really hope I can, I would definitely still try for a vaginal birth. It's called a VBAC, vaginal birth after section. But also I'm so happy and I'm so proud that I've had my section, because I think it helps now understand that it's really difficult. Sometimes you'll hear people saying it's an easy way out. It's absolutely not an easy way out. It's absolutely huge trauma to the body. So is a vaginal birth. To think of what you go through with a vaginal birth is absolutely insane. Like every birth is absolutely beautiful, absolutely unique. It's just the most amazing thing in the world. Like I love my scar now. At the start, I couldn't look at it for a good while. I think I was scared to see it. I don't know. I just like cuts and things are just like quite scary to me. I now love it. I massage it every day. It's part of me. You need to know, like, if you've got a scar and you feel a bit like, that's very common, by the way. A lot of women can't touch it, can't look at it for a year plus, maybe hate it, they maybe put their bodies down about it. Like, try and welcome it into your body, because it is part of your body. It brought your beautiful baby here, which is absolutely insane. So I'm going to stop talking. That went on so much longer than I thought. I jumped from bit to bit, pillar to post, but that's my birth story. I hope you enjoyed. I would love to hear your feedback, your comments, if you've watched it this far. If you're breech, you do have options. You can have a vaginal birth if you want. So many people messaged me, by the way, saying they were breech too and they had a vaginal birth. It's absolutely safe if you're in good hands with the doctor. So make sure they want to support you as well, which Forth Valley were fantastic about. Cannot like rave about them enough. They made my journey amazing. I'm so glad and grateful for midwife Kelly that was there that day to say you do have options, by the way. Because then I felt like I didn't just settle for the C-section. I advocated for myself. It was to try and get the birth that I wanted, but actually my birth was absolutely beautiful, absolutely perfect, and I loved every single minute of it. Anyway, thank you guys. See you soon.